My name's Lee Thatcher. I'm one of the business development managers here at ACUTEC. With me on the webinar this afternoon, I have Irfan, our technical manager.
Hi everybody.
I have Amy, our marketing specialist.
Hello.
So the purpose of the webinar today is to cover defending devices. We have a lot of inquiries these days regarding how you defend your mobile device, and in response we would like to look at three main areas: devices, identity, and files and data. Irfan, how do we do this?
Thank you for the introduction, Lee, much appreciated, and thanks again to everyone who's attended. Yeah, I'm glad, Lee, you've broken it down into three. Now, I know we're going to be talking about protecting devices, like maybe PCs, laptops, mobile devices and tablets, but you're right to try and break it down into the device itself, the person that's accessing it, which is the identity, and the data they're accessing on it. So it's actually breaking it down into three. Now, everyone's got a mobile device, and if you have, as a business, have provided that mobile device to your employee, or if you let them access their email from their devices, then that employee is walking around with your data in their pockets. And my opinion of this, and the industry's opinion, is that devices should be protected just like you would your servers and you would your home or your business buildings. You know, you need security, you need gates, you need front doors, you need locks and so on. So just like you would protect a building, you really need to be thinking about protecting your device. So if we then look at actual breaking down how to look after these devices and the scenarios where you need that to happen, I let my team decide if they want to use their own device, if they want a company device, and that, with the power that I'm allowed to have to control those devices, allows me to have that flexibility, because employees do want to use their phones. There may be iPhones, Android phones. Not many people have Windows phones, but they're out there as well, and even Blackberries. An employee wants to access like a company website or a company page like Facebook, as it shows on the screen, that actually when they are outside of the company or inside the company, and it might be other cloud applications, employees do send sensitive information to each other. It might be actually directors, it might be the finance manager sending it to HR, HR sending it to a manager, and we've had recent, obviously high-profile cases where data has been lost and data breaches have happened, but the company doesn't even know it. And this is really aimed at SMB, small and medium enterprises, as well as the large organizations. Small businesses might think, well, my data is not that vulnerable, but to be honest, everybody at the top is a target at the moment. And please do, if you get a chance, listen to our cybercrime webinar. That's also on our YouTube page, or will be shortly. So really, let's break down the devices section. So if we historically look at devices, it's laptops and PCs, and everyone knows really we need to be protecting them via antivirus, and they're normally based in the business. Now, we used to call them compute PCs or laptops. We've now got a broader term called devices, because actually you can do a lot from your mobile phone and your tablet. So if you stick to laptops and PCs first, really we'd recommend you have antivirus, but everybody has that. The other thing to consider is when laptops are leaving the building, we recommend they are encrypted. Now, this is some configuration that can happen. Some operating systems have encryption built in, others you have to add it. But what it does is, if you, for example, take your laptop out of the business and you lose it, even if the person who's now found your laptop and wants to get into it doesn't have your password, they can still get in to the hard disk by removing the hard disk and getting access to the data. If you encrypt that laptop, then without your password, you cannot get into that device.
And how do we cover for bring your own device, Irfan?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. With mobile devices, regardless if they're the companies or if they're actually the employees their own and you're letting them use them, the good thing about mobile devices, especially Apple devices, iOS devices, is they're quite secure. There are no common threats, so antivirus is less of a concern. Those devices are automatically encrypted, So without the PIN, you can't get in. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot about the FBI trying to get into iPhones, and so that it's very difficult to do that. But what does happen is that there's still data sitting on those devices, and when you've got an Android phone or a Windows phone, they are more vulnerable. So think about antivirus and encryption on those devices. But the key question here is, how, as a business owner or an IT department, can you control those devices? Now, what we recommend, and this is in line with what Microsoft recommend, is that if it's a business device owned by the business, you can manage that device in its entirety. So if it gets lost, you can wipe it from one single place. If you want to see, and this obviously you need the permission of the end user and the employee, if you want to see where that user is, you can track the device. If you want to see the frequency of calls and frequency of text, you can do that with simple pieces of software. The one we're talking about today is Microsoft Intune, part of Microsoft Mobility Suite. But I don't want that to scare employees or employers. You can have as much of that or as little of that as you want, and you cannot hear the calls or you cannot read the text. It's just understanding the frequency of use of that device. And you can restrict it so they can only use certain applications. So they can't download Tinder or Facebook or whatever that might be on. So that's the level of control you can have on a company-owned device. Now your question was about bring your own device, personal devices. The thing is, you can have a smaller part of Microsoft Intune, which is called mobile application development, or mobile application management, sorry. And that just manages the application. And let's say the scenario is the only reason that employee uses their mobile for work is their email. What we can do is just manage the email element related to business and control that. So we can wipe that single console. Now, really, that's the devices. The ways we can control them are simple mobile device management, and we've covered the applications.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Irfan. Identity, what do you mean by identity?
Well, what I'm trying to say there is the people behind the device. Now, how, and the user behind the device. If anybody asked me where is my pound best spent, I would say not on hardware, not on software, not on IT companies, and that might be rich coming from myself, but actually on training the end users. They are, unfortunately, the weakest link. And with the advent of social engineering, manipulating people into giving up information, this is the key. Now, how identity is protected at the moment is you go into work, you log onto your PC or your laptop, you use a username and your password, and what that's doing is it's going away and it's asking the server, I am John Smith, this is my password, can you allow me access? That part of the server is called Active Directory, and what it's doing is it's saying, yes, you're John Smith because you've given me the correct password, here you are, you're allowed to access this much data, here you go. Now, that isn't, we aren't capable of doing that on mobile devices and on tablets, but with the advent of things like Microsoft Azure Active Directory, which is part of this suite we're talking about, actually you can enforce that level of authentication on applications or on mobile devices.
Brilliant. Just to butt in there, Irfan, but what about multiple applications? Is there a way of making that a bit simpler? Or?
If we talk about protecting that device and that application outside of the business, what I'd like to introduce is something called second factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. So what you're saying is that because you know the tool is that I might complicate logging in, and I'm sorry to say that, but that does sometimes happen. If you log onto your bank, it will ask you for a password, and sometimes it will also ask you to use your little calculator that the bank's given you or giving you an extra fob.
We all know that's a pain.
That is a pain, and when you log on, you have to use that second key. Now that's called the second factor of authentication. Your first factor of authentication was your password and your username, and the second bit you're having to put in is a separate key or a text message or a code that that bank has sent you. Now, these suite of tools allow us to do that as well. So when people are outside the business and they want to access their email or they want to access certain applications, let's say OneDrive for Business is where they store information, or Dropbox, we can enforce a second layer of protection if necessary. Now, our larger clients, that's a mortgage services organization, they make sure their mortgage advisors have to put in that second level of authentication before they can carry on. Now, as you rightly said, that increases complexity a little bit, but I can give you something back for that, Lee, which is the fantastic term called single sign-on. Once you have logged onto that device, and I do this at work, I have done historically, I've logged onto my PC, then I have to log on to Office 365, then I have to log on to my incident management system. You've got a quoting solution in the cloud. We've got an internal solution called Entity, and a lot of our clients have a solution called Entity, and they have to then log into those applications. Amy, you regularly have to log into Facebook and Twitter and so on. So what single sign-on allows us to do is Microsoft have built a lot of partnerships with a lot of these software vendors, Xero, Dropbox, Salesforce, and our Entity solution allows us to do this as well. Once you log onto the PC, it automatically then lets you log in to authenticate you to log into Salesforce, into LinkedIn, into Twitter if you want, into Entity, into any Sage Drive. You might be using the cloud version of Sage. So it's a single sign-on across the board. So I know I added a little bit of complexity at the start, and that was choice to give you that second factor authentication. But once you're in, we make it easier for you by letting it log into everything.
What about employees using non-business apps?
Yeah, so going back to mobile application management, it is a way to control it. But you're talking about what I love this term. It sounds quite cool. It's called shadow apps. Now, somebody has got a work phone, and they shouldn't be using Facebook on it or Ladbrokes gambling app on it, but you've got no way to control that, because they've got the phone now and they can download anything they want. What tools like this allow us to do is control those shadow apps working in the background. They're working in the background. They shouldn't really be on there. It alerts us there's an unauthorized app gone on the device, and we can stop that. Now, if it's their own device, they can do that, but control of shadow apps is a big thing for business, especially if you give your employees the device in the first place and you want to control that. A lot of businesses are happy for employees to use their devices for personal as well as work, but there are some types of apps you really want to control and prohibit.
So as a business owner, we can have greater granular control over them.
Yeah, and you as a business owner sometimes don't want that. You just want someone like ACUTEC in the background to make sure your ideas and policies are enforced. So yes, you can have the control, and if you really are one of those people that likes looking at what's happening in your business, we can give you that single pane of glass where you can see what everybody's doing on their devices, with their permission, of course, when they first log on. But if you just want someone like ACUTEC to manage that in the background, that can happen as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Evan. When we talk about files and data, how do we keep our data and files safe, especially on mobile devices?
It's becoming more and more difficult, but let me give you, rather than a mobile device example, let me give you just a general example in someone sending an email. So John is sending an email to Lisa, but accidentally it's gone to Liam because it just auto-filled and it's sent. Everybody's had that happen. Me and you, in a past life, we worked for another company and we had a colleague that did that 5 or 6 times, and he's the brunt of many jokes, and especially because one of the emails wasn't very nice about the person it went to. So
at the time.
Yeah, that happens. So how do you unfortunately, it's very difficult to stop that happening where you send it to the wrong person. But if you have attached a sensitive piece of document, so John is a manager and he's sending to Lisa, who's the HR manager, and it's gone to Liam by accident, and it's actually about another one of his colleagues, and it contains sensitive information, because you have applied something called rights management. And again, this suite of tools allow you to do that. Nobody apart from Lisa can open that document, even if it's been sent to Liam. It is protected because guess what it's doing? It's going back to the server and saying, has Lisa tried to open this application? No, it's Liam. I'm not going to give him access. So that protects that document. Now imagine Lisa is trying to access that document from outside of work, and she is entitled to it. She doesn't have to connect back to the server, but she still needs to be authenticated. So what Azure Active Directory does, which is part of this, it goes and connects to the cloud version of her authentication and says, yes, it's Lisa, she has access. Now imagine Lisa is no longer the HR manager, but it's still on her personal phone or it's on her tablet, and she tries to access that. Because we've turned off her access at work in Active Directory, it also has turned it off for any other device. So even though she's got that Word document or Excel document on her phone, she can't open it because she no longer works for ACUTEC or wherever company, and we've stopped authentication. So it gives you quite a lot of control on the data and the transfer of data, who can send it. We can actually apply. If you've got a sensitive document and it's got, you can say if it's got any values in it, pound signs. If you can say if it contains any one of your sensitive companies in it. If it contains that word, you can actually put a rule in that says this can't be sent outside of our organisation. So you can't send it accidentally to anybody else, or you could, this document can only be shared by the management team. So this level of control we're allowed to apply purely because of these quite powerful tools. And Lee, I'm going to say, I know we both talk about it regularly, the name for the set of these tools is Enterprise Mobility Suite. It's a terrible name because it's perfect for small business. It's designed really to fit into small business, and sometimes it makes a perfect companion to Office 365 as a bolt-on.
Why do you say that, Irfan? Is that because 365 is a cloud-based product and we're using it more now as a business and personal?
Absolutely, but someone who's got 365 might be using OneDrive, so controlling who has access to that OneDrive data and how that OneDrive data is shared works perfectly. And if you want to wipe that OneDrive data, you can do that from Enterprise Mobility Suite as well, quite simply. But again, I hate using that term, Enterprise Mobility Suite, because even though it might be used by a lot of big businesses, it's perfect for small business because it's so simple, and to be honest, it's quite cost effective as well. But as you heard, it's three factors. It helps you protect the device, and it helps you protect the identity and the users, and then it helps you protect the file. But it's more important for us not to talk about Enterprise Mobility Suite, but actually speak to the people listening and say, these are the threats and the concerns that you should be thinking about. There are other tools available, but the main thing is what to think about is your data leaves your business and is in someone's pocket or in someone's tablet every day, and it's important that you have control of that data because it belongs to you as a business.
Brilliant, thank you, Irfan. Thank you all for listening this afternoon. Just to finish, if any of you do want any more information on Enterprise Mobility Suite, then please contact one of the guys at the office. We also have a fantastic demo that we can come out and show you live, and we will have an immersion suite shortly at our offices, which then you can come over, play with some of the latest kits, and also see EMS and Office 365 working together. Just before we do close today, does anybody have any questions for us? Please feel free to type them in.
Amy, I know we had a question in while we were talking. Have we got
yes. Someone's asked, can they use EMS with the Mac?
Yeah, so again, as I said, it doesn't have to be Enterprise Mobility Suite. The majority of mobile device management piece of software can control iOS, can control Android, can control Windows, and the good question here is, can it control a Mac operating system? You know yourself, you use a Mac, boo, right? And we've got Keith in the business that uses a Mac as well. So yes, it can control the Mac.
We have had another question now, wanting to know whether by using EMS they can stop apps being installed on a mobile.
Yes, you have that granular level of control. You can restrict which apps are installed. You can actually have it so you have to authorize every app request. So it's quite granular, the control.
And I think, yeah, we've just got one more being typed now. Hang on. Okay. They want to know how this works with HR and whether you have any issues with that.
If it works with HR, I think what someone might be trying to ask is, how does it work with permissions and letting the end user know, because it can feel like they're being spied on. How that works is once this suite of products is installed, it needs to be approved by the person who's got the handset. So the end user will have to say, yes, I agree that I have restrictions on my application download, that my device can be tracked for where it is, and that it can be wiped remotely. So they will have to tick a box saying, yes, I allow you to have that control. And when it's the business's device, the business has given the laptop, that's fine. And when it's their own device, all you would be asking for is the ability to remote wipe the business's data on that device. So it would only say, we have the ability to wipe Outlook emails from the business if required, and that's what it says. So there is permission needed by the end user first.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any more questions?
Not that we can see.
Okay.
Okay, again, folks, thank you for your time. This is lunchtime, and we hope to speak to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.